When the journey didn't go as planned, the businessman awoke the next morning with confidence in his heart. He believed the little van that had carried so many would soon carry the community again. He moved through his morning routine with expectation in his spirit. Everything felt settled. Then the phone rang. It was the mechanic's apprentice. His voice was gentle, but heavy. "Sir, you will need to come for the van, the mechanic. He is no longer with us." For a moment, time stood still. The businessman felt the weight of disappointment press against his chest. Not only was the work unfinished, but a life had been lost, plans had been interrupted, hope had been delayed. He shared the news with his family, and together they paused. Not in frustration, but in prayer they prayed for the mechanic's family, asking God to comfort them in their time of grief. Even in setback, compassion came first. But the journey was not over. Determined, he set out with his brother-in-law, a man with some mechanical experience. The old engine was still weak, still overheating, still unreliable. The road home would not be easy, and he knew he needed help beside him. When they arrived, the apprentice handed over the keys. The engine coughed to life. It sounded tired, like a runner nearing the end of a race, but it moved. They began the long drive from E. Wharton toward Guy's Hill. The landscape stretched out before them, fields of oranges glowing under the sun, tall sugar canes swaying in the breeze, and wide-open plains that seemed almost peaceful enough to make them forget the trouble beneath the hood. But the peace did not last. They stopped at Berkshire Hall to service the struggling engine. Before attempting the steep climb, known as Devil's Race Course, a winding road carved with sharp corners and deep bends, its name told its own story. One wrong move, one mechanical failure, and danger would be close. Slowly, carefully, they climbed. Finally, they reached a place called Corner Rest, a traditional stopping point for heavy-duty vehicles that had successfully conquered the hill. Drivers had paused there for generations, either to cool engines or to serve passengers from the nearby community. They stopped. They ate and they thought, what if there's a mechanic nearby? They wondered. There wasn't. So they pressed on to Guy's Hill and found a mechanic shop. The owner listened carefully as the businessman explained the unusual engine conversion. The straight-six engine waiting to be fitted into the small light ace. The mechanic shook his head gently. "Sorry," he said, "we've never done anything like that before." Another door closed. They drove again, nearly home now, and stopped at a small mechanic close to their community. He examined the situation and declared it impossible. He had never seen such a thing done. Still, they did not quit. They continued on to Karen Hall. The shop there was busy, too busy to help. But one mechanic pointed them further down the road to an experienced man who lived almost off the grid. When they found him, he had no electricity, no modern tools, just experience and wisdom. He listened, nodded, and began offering solutions. Cutting and reshaping the engine bay, fabricating new mounts, using a welding torch to make what did not fit. He saw possibility where others saw impossibility. Encouraged, they returned to the mechanic's shop, and this time, one mechanic stepped forward. "I'll do it." A deal was made. The mechanic and the brother-in-law would carry out the conversion at the businessman's home. Relief washed over him, not because the problem had been easy, but because perseverance had paid off. What others rejected, God redirected. What seemed impossible required patience. What looked like delay was divine alignment. As the work began, the businessman did not stand aside. He helped, he learned, he endured. And through every setback, he trusted that God was working behind the scenes. Because sometimes faith is not just crossing bridges without rails. Sometimes faith is driving a dying engine through disappointment, climbing dangerous hills, hearing no again and again, and still believing that somewhere someone will say yes. The lesson: this part of the journey teaches us that delay is not denial. God may allow interruptions. He may allow closed doors. He may even allow loss, but he never abandons the calling. When one mechanic was gone, another was prepared. When one shop refused, another was positioned. When something seemed impossible, wisdom appeared in unexpected places. If you keep moving, even slowly, God will guide you to the right help at the right time. Perseverance partnered with prayer will always produce provision. And sometimes the very struggle that tests your patience becomes the testimony that strengthens your faith. To God be the glory, great things he has done, amen.